Well, aloha, ladies and gentlemen. This is PWT Talks NXT. We're talking NXT for August the 27th, 2024. But if you read spoilers, you already knew what happened at the show because this was filmed right after last week's live show, which is something I remembered after I was starting to wonder why the crowd was so quiet during the first couple of segments. That's because they were a little tired. NXT, the company seemed to know this. They didn't put out this show could have not been a show, and I don't think anybody would have noticed for the most part. A couple of things happened. Some of the go home stuff was all right, but the best stuff on this show was all pre-taped. Other than one match, which I really, really liked. And we will talk about that before long. So, I don't know, guys. I don't have a lot of notes on this show because this show didn't require a lot of them. But we're going to talk main event segment, which was Joe Hendry in concert. Yeah, I mean, we'll do it because we have to, but I don't know how long we're going to be able to do it. Joe Hendry in concert. Ethan put on some clothes. That's going to be my takeaway because I heard it spoken many hundreds of times during this bit. So I like what Ethan Page is doing as champion, but I am also occasionally forgetting that he is champion. So there you go. Not sure how that works. And then he shows up on screen, usually with Ava because he's feuding with Ava. The feud with Hendry seems to be secondary to his feud with Ava, which I guess if Hendry's not staying around, that's what you should do because Ava will still be there. But there, I don't know. This was a weird show. They didn't have any of the stuff with Robert Stone and Stevie Turner, which it's dopey, but I appreciate what it's doing. And I hope there's some kind of end game from it for it. Kelly Kincaid was not on here, even though she was on last week's show. And this was filmed right after it. I don't know. Mostly just matches and a couple of very, very small backstage things happened. Nate, I've said everything I need to. I believe that is our show.
Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks.
We'll see you next week. Yes.
Let's talk Joe Hendry concert, and the real meat to this is our special referee is Trick Williams, but the audience knew right away who it was going to be because Trick's not going to not be on the show. So this is a decent way to shoehorn him in. I, for one, think that Trick's involvement is proof positive that Page will win this match. Nate, tell me what you think.
You know, I completely agree with you 100%. You know, I thought maybe going into this that, I mean, as you can see from my tagline here, if you're watching on YouTube, it says that Nate Lindberg believes in Joe Hendry right on my screen. And I also have a picture of Joe Hendry in my virtual studio here. But as much as I'd like to see him actually win the NXT title and how interesting it would be to see somebody from a different company hold the NXT championship or even just hold a championship within WWE in general, I think you're right. I think the fact that they are including Trick Williams, a special guest referee in here, signifies that they're going to be most likely continuing on with an Ethan Page and Trick Williams feud after this feud with Joe Hendry. So I think that kind of signals that Joe may not wind up winning the title here. Most likely not. I mean, as soon as they announced the fact that there was going to be a special guest referee, I'm thinking to myself, oh, yep, Trick Williams. The crowd starts chanting it about, I don't know, 3 nanoseconds after I think about it. And of course we hear his music and, you know, there we go. I'm kind of fine with it. I mean, I don't think that the Joe Hendry Ethan Page match necessarily needed anything else to heat it up or or get extra eyeballs on it or anything like that. I think just kind of the sheer fact of Joe Hendry's like viral popularity right now, it still would have been a match that people were looking forward to. Um, and I'm sorry, before I go to my um, and I think that if they were to go that way and just had the single match between the two of them, maybe you could have Trick Williams interfere or something like that. And there's a way to obviously progress a storyline between Trick Williams and Ethan Page there. But we see that very often where somebody interferes. And I mean, I remember talking, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8 weeks ago now at this point about a particular show where it seemed like I want to say there was like the first 3 or 4, maybe even 5 like matches on the show all had some sort of interference that caused you know that played directly into the finish. So going with the special guest referee, it's a different way, different angle that they can go to kind of progress that storyline without needing to go to the interference. Works for me. Um, I think Trick Williams versus Ethan Page is relatively compelling. I'm kind of with you right now. I kind of if I'm not actively thinking about Ethan Page as the NXT champion, I forget he's the NXT champion. Um, uh, so you know, and I've also said on the show too before that for some reason, he's just not clicking as champion for me. Maybe because he's still so new to the company, and I still don't think of him as an NXT guy yet. I still think of him as an AEW guy, or you know, just somebody from outside the company. But he hasn't clicked in my head as the champ.
I
So
also feel like they're using him as a champ where he's like a pay to play champ. You only get to see him in big matches, but he doesn't have the cachet yet for that.
yeah,
So,
that's a good point.
like Roman Reigns can be champion and he's not even on the show, and you know that that's hanging over the show.
Hmm.
And as good a work as Paige is doing, he ain't all that. So you're not thinking of that hanging over the show.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's actually a really good point. Um, so yeah, you know, I just kind of think that the presentation of Ethan Page as the all ego, and kind of trying to slot him in as an attraction, I guess, as you're trying to say here. It's not really working for me. I'd like for them. I'd like to kind of understand more who Ethan Page is. Not that we don't, because he's just kind of a little bit of egotistic. Well, yeah, egotistical, all ego. But he's, you know, super egotistical and all that. But I'd like to see him a little bit more in the ring and kind of have him introduced to the NXT crowd a little bit more. I know it's been what 2, 3 months now that he's been in NXT, give or take, maybe a little bit longer than that. But like you said, he kind of just seems. I like how you put it. You know, pay to win or pay to play rather right now. Um, yeah. So yeah, Trick Williams, Ethan Page. I think, like you said, I think that's probably the direction they're going, which kind of sucks for those of us who believe in Joe Hendry.
So on these shows where the last match, where the main event is not a match but a segment, usually the last match is not so great. They throw it in the death spot, but tonight the last match was the best one: Javon Evans versus Joe Coffey. I really like this. This went 8:58. Joe Coffey wins with that thing that he does. Javon, these two match up nicely because Joe Coffey is a brute who slows it down, and Javon Evans is trying to excite the crowd. This one does not have any implications for No Mercy, so I guess it's weird that I'm prioritizing it, but I wanted to because it was good. Azam White in the chat says, "Is Javon Evans just another guy in NXT?" No, but they're taking their time with him, so I think he's going to be a big deal. I think these segments prove he's going to. I also wrote that I think he's on a Sami Zayn type track where he is going to take some high profile defeats and have a hill to climb and go somewhere from there. I Really like what he does. I really liked this segment that he had backstage, simple, quick though it was, with Sarah Schreiber. And I thought he had a really nice big versus small, and would have won this match if not for Gallus doing the numbers game on him. Gallus doesn't get to win much, but they have to win occasionally, so their losses do give something to their opponents. I still don't know where they are in terms of could they possibly ever be called up to the main roster. I'm still leaning no, as long as they've been in the company like 8-9 years, and I'm still leaning no, but they could surprise me. Javon definitely will hit that main roster. It's just a matter of what they think he needs to learn and do before he goes up. So definitely not just another guy, but they definitely did pump the brakes, and they're figuring out what they want to do next, between No Mercy and, I don't know, whatever the next one is. Nate on the, not main event, but the last match of this show.
Yeah, I was just looking up Javon because I wanted to make sure that I was right with his age, because I was about to say, I can't believe this guy still can't drink and he's able to perform the way he can perform. And he's got a really good just ring name in general, Malachi Jeffers. I don't know, I like that. Not that Javon Evans isn't a good name, but Malachi Jeffers. Anyway, Javon Evans is another guy in NXT right now. Yeah, like Kelly said, I think he kind of sort of is, but I don't think he is for long. I completely agree with what Kelly just said. His charisma, and just the unbelievable things that he can do in the ring, I think are going to lead him to a very successful career. I mean, it might be like a Kofi Kingston type, trajectory. I see a lot of similarities. I kind of see a lot of similarities there. Or something maybe along the lines of like the Miz in terms of the level of where he gets. But hey, both of those are former WWE champions, so that's a really good place on the card for him to kind of settle in. As long as he winds up getting there, and I think if he keeps going the trajectory that he's going, he'll certainly wind up on the main roster before long. But yeah, like Kelly said, for right now, I think they're just trying to figure out where to slot him in. The whole reason that I looked him up was because, like I said, I wanted to say he's 20 years old. He has a lot of time to be on the roster, and kind of build himself up and become a star. Yeah, he's got everything that he needs to be a star in the business. In terms of the match, I agree. I think this is the best match on the card. Very, I don't know. We had some wrestling on the show tonight, but like Kelly was saying, the most of it was relatively inconsequential. This match, and to be honest with you, the Wendy Chu match or not Wendy Chu match, the Rosemary match where Wendy Chu showed up at the end, were probably my two favorites. But the Rosemary match for a different reason. We'll get there when we get there. This match between Javon Evans and Joe Coffey, like you said, Joe Coffey is a brute. So his style really lended itself well to what Javon Evans can do. Joe Coffey is going to just try and pummel you down, take you down, big, brawling brute, like you said. And I don't mean he's part of the brawling brutes. Let's not go there. The last thing we want is a Sheamus and Gallus union, I think. Anyway, but yeah, so Joe Coffey, being, like I said, that brawling brute, Javon Evans, aerial style, flippy style, like Kelly said, he's going to try and speed the match up and get everybody, get everybody excited and everything like that. From what we saw tonight, like they actually had a lot of chemistry together, and for a match that really meant nothing other than to kind of heat Gallus up a half a notch, maybe. This was a damn good match. I can see why they put it in the main event slot, even though it had no implications for No Mercy.
I think that Sheamus and Gallus could work.
It could. I just don't know if I want to see it.
Okay. That's fair.
I totally think it could work, but
Sheamus 10 years ago and Gallus would definitely work. Sheamus right now is kind of killing it as lovable doofus who occasionally gets to win stuff.
yeah.
And yeah, burger after burger after burger. Yeah, I think that this
Yep.
is that it's working for him. So let's not belabor that. So I don't know. Normally it's obvious where to go next on the show. I'm just throw a dart. All right, the family versus New Quarter Catch Club. This was just before the halfway point in the show. 11 minutes and 10 seconds is your longest match on the show. That is short for the longest match on the show, but it was, and it's also the rare one where the longest match was not the first or the last match. The family won this with a lung blower on Miles Bourne. Kind of weird because Tony D was pulled away from the scene because there was
An emergency, let's
an
say.
emergency in his restaurant. I don't know how you frame emergency. Someone is paying to eat at your restaurant. They are drinking white wine. You need to go now. So yes, Obafemi sipping white wine, not something I thought that I'd see on this show. But
No.
but he looks cool even doing that. So who who am I to argue with Obafemi? That would be a stupid thing to do. So you can talk about that segment too, a segment that would be a nothing burger. But Obafemi's just so cool. And I think that, I don't know, maybe that building just inspires Tony because he's always good there. I just think that he does his best stuff there too. He doesn't have the upside of Obafemi, but who does? Okay, so the family wins despite D'Angelo leaving. Him leaving would seem to leave the door open for no quarter catch club. I don't know why they're not winning when they're doing such fun stuff. And the family is not doing fun stuff. But I guess they went babyface with this, and why the family, I don't know. I got issues with the family being babyface. I think it's silly. But Ren Sinclair is a godsend. I love what she's doing in this group. I love the weird relationship she has with the boys in this group, and how she steps to absolutely everybody, even when it's not a good idea. I really, really like Ren Sinclair. So 11 minutes and 10 seconds, family over no quarter catch club. I keep saying club. They're a crew, Nate.
They're a crew. They're row in a boat. I don't know. Pretend I didn't say that. Anyway, Ren Sinclair, out of all of the kind of that new class of women coming in, I think she might be one of my favorites, if not my favorite right now. For everything that she's doing with No Quarter Catch Crew, I just had to think about it. I had to actually think about it. Was a crew or a club in my head? Everything she's doing with No Quarter Catch Crew is absolutely phenomenal. She's playing kind of the um she's playing the funny man to the straight man, if you will. And I think she's doing a fantastic job on it. It's not quite the correct comparison because it's not necessarily a comedic act, but she No Quarter Catch Crew, all three guys, they're just so rigid and focused on winning and focused on the matches, especially Charlie Dempsey and things like that. Whereas Ren Sinclair, she's coming in and she just doesn't care. She'll get up in anybody's face and she's very entertaining while she does it. So I really like what she's adding to the No Quarter Catch Crew, because I felt like, especially after losing Drew Gulak, they might flounder a little bit. And then after losing, Damon Kemp and everything, I was like, I don't know, but I think they're starting to get their feet back under them here. As far as the family being baby faces, very weird. Not that No Quarter Catch Crew could really be baby faces, but with all of the back and forth between Ren Sinclair and the rest of the boys in that group, in the No Quarter Catch Crew, you could probably play it off as the face. Like, to be honest with you, seeing them in the corners that they were in tonight with the D'Angelo family in the face corner and the no quarter catch crew in the heel corner, I really felt like it should be swapped. And to be completely honest with you, it was all because of Ren Sinclair, because of my perception of Ren Sinclair. Um, and I love her. I think the fans love her. And she comes across as a face, even though she's kind of with a group of heels, or she is with a group of heels right now. But the D'Angelo family are definitely playing the good guys here, playing the baby faces. So, in terms of the story, so we'll go with it. It just doesn't seem right, but whatever. Um, oh, what was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought. The match itself, it was fine. Mixed match or mixed tag team match, which I'm all for, mixing genders in tag team or in tag team matches here, but I don't know. Personally, I think if we're going to do an intergender match, like, I'd rather see like an indie style intergender match, because you know what, guys, it's scripted. And I don't know. That's just my take on it, but whatever. And my reason being is in a match like this, as soon as a man tags out and a woman tags in, the other man has to get out and come in. It ruins the momentum of the match for me, and it's just hard for me to kind of get into them. Um, Same thing going on here, but is what it is. Um, Luca Crisafino, even though he didn't get a,
I
even though
dare say that they had a good moment there, though, because Ren tagged herself in, and the boys were annoyed because they were on a roll. Um,
yeah,
so in that way, it worked because that added to their story. So I guess whichever backdrop you use, you're going to have storyline possibilities. I think they used the framework of whether or not you like the rules they use. I think given the fact that they use these rules, it allowed them to do something with Ren that they couldn't have used uh, if they had, and they would have done something different if they
yeah,
had those rules, but they didn't do that. What I thought was interesting about this match is that once again, it's pretty clear that they don't want a lot of Adriana Rizzo minutes on TV. Because she got so little time in the gauntlet. She got so little time in the battle royal. And when it was time for her to tag into this, they went to commercial. She was legal, so we know she got some minutes, but and I think this might have been one of the two matches that got split screen. No, maybe it was maybe it was the opener. I don't remember, but yeah, I don't know if they're protecting her because they see a lot in her, or they're protecting her because they don't see a lot in her yet. But it's very interesting how hesitant they are to show us Adriana Rizzo minutes.
yeah. I just don't think they are completely sold on Adriana Rizzo yet. I think they're probably sold on her charisma behind the scenes, or sorry, backstage, vignettes and what she can do on the mic, because she's I mean, she's not the best, but she's not bad. She's really not bad.
Yeah,
Um,
I like her. I like her on the
yeah,
mic for sure. Yep.
exactly. So I think they may just be trying to maybe take a bit of more of a wait and see approach, and kind of minimize her time on TV. What I was going to say though is Luca Crisafino really impressed me during this match. He may not have gotten a pop from the crowd when he got the hot tag, but that could be due to the fact that, like we said earlier in the night, this was a taped show after last week's live show, so the crowd might have been just kind of tired, really didn't care. But uh, for somebody getting a hot tag, you kind of expect some sort of a pop, something. I think I heard maybe three people in the crowd go, "Yay, great!" That said, though, he came in fired up. I really like the way he looks. I don't think he's I don't think he's better than Stacks. I think Stacks is still the better wrestler between the two. But still, I at least wanted to call it out because that definitely stood out to me tonight.
Stax is a much better wrestler, but Luca's got more of a chance to be a star.
He's
And I
got a
don't know
better
how much
look.
of a chance he's got. Yeah, he's got a cool factor that comes through, and Stax has some cool factor, but you have to be immersed in his work to know that. He doesn't look like somebody who's got it. Um, so you do have to kind of be on the Stax bandwagon, as we kind of are here,
Oh yeah.
to get that. Yeah, Luca only got a tepid reaction on the hot tag, and I will chalk that up to audience fatigue. But I dare say he kind of got him with his babyface fire, like his fire up on both male members of No Quarter Catch Crew. I thought was pretty good, and it doesn't feel like it was that long ago where they put him on TV the first time, and I was like, this dude ain't ready. Um,
Yeah.
that
No,
is
it's exactly.
that was not that long ago, I don't think, with the caveat that I am old and I don't remember how long ago things happened, because they kind of eased him in slowly to this and brought him to the we knew he'd end up with the family. We just didn't know when.
It's got to be
So
at least like 6, 8 months now, but
yeah,
he's so sparse and sporadic on TV where it feels like it happened 3 weeks ago or something.
let's go to Zach Wentz and Wesley. They had this was the crossover. This conversation between former friends. Yeah, this was good. We're going to have this match that feels like such a bonus on No Mercy. This is the only non-championship match on No Mercy, and I think it certainly earns its spot with all the stuff they're doing. There was a pretty good um, history package on these guys early on in the show that kind of set up this segment. Wes is better on the mic than Wentz, but he falls back on the stuff he's got to say, maybe a little too much. He said 3 times, we're just on different levels. I'm like, we got it, man. We got it. The first and second times you said it. Wentz was better with his content, but is not as strong in his delivery. I think you could mash the two guys together and get essentially a perfect promo. But they both, I think, did their parts in this, and I wanted to see this, but now it's probably damn near the most intriguing match to me. The most intriguing is the main, because could they with Joe Hendry? But otherwise, I think this is the one, just because they've done some pretty good work here, and bringing in just enough real life stuff to this has kind of worked. It never crossed the line into meta, but I think they did some. I think they towed the line pretty well here in bringing the right amount of real life stuff to this. So again, Wentz is somebody I could see sticking around, but I have no idea what this partnership is going to look like because it is still in its infancy, Nate.
And by partnership, I'm assuming you mean the partnership between TNA and NXT.
I do.
Um,
Yes.
yes. Okay. Um, I'm right there with you. Like, I don't know exactly what the details are. They're not really out there. I didn't necessarily expect, the second time I'll bring up Rosemary. I didn't expect to see another TNA talent, because I almost expect this partnership to run out at some point. And I'm glad it's not, because we're seeing some talent that we wouldn't normally see. Yeah, but anyway, I was about to go down a rabbit hole. I'm not going to do that. Um, with Zach Wentz and Wesley, I I liked this segment. Like you said, Wesley kind of did repeat himself a few times, and I remember even thinking to myself, like, dude, like we've heard you say, like, yeah, I forget what the line was, but we've heard you say this a few times now. Um, but Zach, I gotta say, Zach Wentz, when he got on the mic and was, he had like maybe a solid minute or so of just kind of cutting this promo on Wesley kind of from the heart. Wasn't the I mean wasn't the greatest delivery, greatest promo I've ever heard, but I couldn't I don't remember a lot of his promos as Nash Carter. And they were always playing off of each other back and forth. This was one of the first times that I've seen him in a single solo role kind of take over a promo all about himself and his particular position and not have Trey or Wes to really play off of. And I think he killed it, to be honest. Like I said, it wasn't uh, the greatest or the best promo that I've ever seen, but for what I expected out of him, to be honest, I really do. I think he killed it. Um, I'm very intrigued in this match going into No Mercy. Um, Partly because of the story, but partly because I think this might be some of the best wrestling we're going to see on the card. I mean, looking out, up and down the card, Ethan Page, Joe Hendry, going to be a good match. Roxanne Perez, Jada Parker, going to be a good match. Kalani Jordan versus Wendy Chu, going to be a good match. Obafemi versus Tony D'Angelo, should be a good match. Chase U versus Nathan Frazier at Axiom, should be a good match. Wesley versus Zachary Wentz, oh, that's gonna be pretty intense. Like that's what at least goes through my head when I look down the card. Um, I think it's the match I'm looking forward to the most. Probably with the NXT Championship matches as my second, simply because of the whole Joe Hendry factor. Although, as I said at the beginning of the show, I don't necessarily see him winning the title, so it's a little less intriguing for me. Um, and then I think rearing that up is going to be my third is Obafemi versus Tony D'Angelo, because I kind of just want to see Obafemi destroy Tony D'Angelo, because I just like watching Obafemi destroy anybody he steps in the ring with. Um, what else? I think I think that's it. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to say real quick about the Wesley and Zach Wentz thing is I'm kind of I'm surprised, and I like the fact that they're positioning like the NXT WWE wrestler as the bad guy and the TNA wrestler as the good guy in both the Joe Hendry match as well as the Zach Wentz Wesley match. Um, it so often, you would whether they have the WWE's had partnerships with other companies or they try to talk about other companies. It's they talk down to or look down on other companies. But here, even though Wesley did kind of like talk down to TNA and put TNA down a little bit in his promo, it was done in a heelish way. The crowd didn't get behind it. They still were behind Zach Wentz. I like the fact that they're promoting these TNA guys as actual credible challengers and not kind of chewing them off as just fodder or just people that are showing up. The fact that they're using these guys and girls in meaningful storylines is pretty cool.
I have for many years been trying to do a complete run of all the WWE pay-per-views, and it's very slow going because I've long since gotten to the point where they're doing at least 12 a year. And I'm watching the second to last one I watched was Invasion, which
Oh, I'm sorry.
that buy rate was gangbusters. It's awful. It's awful. Vince couldn't I mean, in addition to the fact that a lot of WCW's best guys were gone already, so they only had a small handful who really, really could make this pop.
Like Sean Stasiak.
Meat, he was on the show. Yeah, he was there. In addition to that, Vince was just he was just so petty.
Yep.
That they had to make it our company are the baby faces, and that's long-term detrimental to the face heel roles that you're trying to cultivate with your top stars. And it's just like he was so desperate to stomp WCW that he did that for a few months, and like the cool stuff that was going on stopped. It totally stopped for a couple of months while they did this. So cool. They got their buy rate on Invasion, and it was a huge buy rate. It's still the biggest buy rate ever for a non-Big Four, and it will remain that because you don't get those buy rates anymore because that's not how people consume. So that will forever be the biggest buy rate they ever did for a non-Big Four. But God, that show freaking blows. It
was one of the biggest disappointments ever. I mean, I even remember as a kid because that was 2002. I want to say I think it was either during the summer or just going into my freshman year in high school, and like begging my parents for that pay-per-view, and I got it. And I remember watching it and like just so perplexed and disappointed by the end of it. It was the end of the magical attitude era for me. I remember never quite feeling the magic again after that. At least in the same way.
Well, now that everybody's sad, let's go on to the next thing. Why not the opener? Metaphor versus Fallon Henley and JC Jane of Fatal
Influence.
Fatal Influence. Yeah, when I haven't written it recently, obviously I forget it. I talked about the fact that it's not a bad name, but it's generic, so maybe it's really bad. Because generic doesn't work. This really does feel like one of those things. They came out with new music and a new logo. I like the logo, and I really like the music because it's different. It's not what we hear in this company, and we hear so much of the same music in this company. But they took on Henley and Jane with Jasmine Nix in their corner, took on Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend in the opener, which went 10:04. And the heels won with like a meet in the middle, double knees on Jakara Jackson. I will say Jakara Jackson looked like a real early work in progress again. Yeah, I want her to figure it out, but it's a slow work in progress. Lash took some time, but has been delivering as a big for a while. Henley and Jane and Nix, they just put them together, but this feels almost practically final form to me. You could break them up, but you could also bring them up this way. I think they're doing all right, and I think that Jasmine Nix is one of those ones who just takes to it really quickly because she's really, really good in the ring. Would love if they changed her name because I hate typing it. My fingers don't want to go in that order. I just hate typing Jasmine Nix, but I like her. So that's your opener. So whole lot of women in the opener, Nate.
So I think JC Jane just opens up like a dictionary and picks a 5-letter word and then a long-looking adjective and mashes them together. Toxic attraction, fatal influence. I don't know. I hate the name. I wouldn't say I hate the name. I dislike the name. It to me sounds more like a movie title. Maybe not quite like Fatal Attraction, but I don't know. The name just
it doesn't sound like a good movie title. It sounds like the title of a bad movie, which I think is
like a straight to bin. It reminds me of Submission Sorority, and don't Google that, people. But it's kind of gives me the same vibes as that. Former Team PCB name, for all of you guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So other than that, though, I agree with you. I think that the presentation of Fatal Influence right now is close to final form as they're going to get. Unless there might be some more evolution to this team. It might be a short-lived team. It might be a long-lived team, but they have chemistry together. That scene where they were walking through the hallway, kind of on their way to, I think they were on the way to the ring for the match. Yeah, it was right before the match. It was on their way to the ring. The three are walking, and they just have such confidence and swagger that you kind of just bought into the fact that this is a team that's been together for a while, and they haven't. They just kind of came together. Um, we did get some. We did wind up getting some backstory last week. Where Fallon Henley and JC Jane, they were on the Indies together and things like that. So they have some chemistry and a bit of a bond from that. But in terms of in WWE, this is kind of just still a thrown together team, but like they have a lot of chemistry together. And I think they're working very well. Both behind, backstage in talking segments and vignettes and things, as well as in the ring. They're kind of firing on as many cylinders or more cylinders than you'd expect right now. So yeah, thumbs up for me for Fatal Influence, other than the dumb name. Um, Metaphor, Lash Legend, Jakar Jackson. I'm gonna just agree with what Kelly says. Like, I'm not gonna get into all of that because I basically parrot what he says in terms of um, Jakara Jackson and kind of what we saw here tonight, especially where this was a taped show. They could have edited it maybe in a little bit of a better way to make her look a little bit better, but whatever, it's fine. I think she still has potential at everything. She maybe just had an off night, or the fact that I think it was the second time she was wrestling in the night because this was a tape show, or at least on TV or something. Um, but um, but yeah, I think that's all I get to say about that. Like Forrest Gump.
All right. Why don't I go to a couple of emails and then see if they cover everything that we were going to get to. Anyway, you can email us at pwtorchnxt@gmail.com. This is from Steve Repshire. Good evening, gentlemen. I send this email on a foggy morning in Ocean City, Maryland. Unlikely I'll see tonight's show live, so I'll focus on No Mercy on Sunday. Julia has finally said her goodbyes to Marigold and Japan. After Roxanne undoubtedly retains against Jada, do you see much of a chance we see Julia live or on the Tron? And what about there being a non-zero chance that Julia leaves No Mercy as champion? Then they can get along with moving Roxy to the main roster. Have a great show, Steve Repshire, temporarily in Ocean City, Maryland, 4th year VIP. Okay, so there's a segment early in the show between Jada and Roxy, and I think I already crossed it out because I'm not finding it on my notes, or maybe I just forgot to put it in my notes. Yep, sure did. Glad he brought it up because it's pretty good. Jada is playing babyface as I thought she would have to, but they really leaned into it hard here. They talked about her journey, and she put over the people that she had to beat to get there, and she even put over her opponent. Then, of course, Roxanne kicked Sarah Schreiber out the whole building and took her seat and said, I mean, you've got the same sob story as everybody I've faced, and I'm going to beat you just like I beat all of them. And then Jada finishes what she's saying and says to an off-screen personality, what are you doing here? Yeah, I've heard of you. You want to get some? You can come get some too. And Roxanne Perez looks off and looks surprised too. By the way, whoever's supposed to be off screen was not there because the acting was very bland in that respect, which is always a hint that that the person's not there because they're not getting real reactions to look at. So if there was any doubt, the person is not there. This is almost certainly Julia. It could be Stephanie Vicker, but I don't think that's how they're going to do things unless they want to drag this out a little more. You could do Stephanie first and then get to Julia, but I don't think that's what they'll do. I think they'll I don't know how fast of a fast track she needs, but I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised by either person because they're options with either person. And but it seems like this is where Julia comes up. So Steve emails us about Julia, and it seems like we have a tease that she could be showing up. Nate.
All I can think of right now is just wave your hands from. It's stuck in my head, and I can't get it out. Um, anyway, Roxanne Perez and Jada Parker. That's what we're talking about. I got to stop thinking about Joe Hendry. Um, I liked the segment that they put together tonight, kind of hyping the match for No Mercy. I think it did a pretty effective job, kind of hyping both of them up. And I don't want to say Jada Parker necessarily needs it, but I think her star power is still a little bit less than for Roxanne Perez's, for example. So kind of. With this presentation tonight, I think it kind of brought her up, maybe not quite to Roxanne's level, but a little bit higher. I like that. When they both looked off, I immediately thought about Julia. To be honest, Stephanie Vaquer didn't even cross my mind. It immediately went to Julia. Yeah, they could be going one of either way, but I think it's probably Julia.
I'm going to be guilty of thinking it could be Stephanie for a lot, because I know that they're not known to the same level, but I've seen both of them a lot. So I keep thinking that it could be Stephanie, but I know she doesn't have the name cachet, even though she does have it with me.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. Do you bring Julia, because where Julia is the bigger name, do you bring her in first and then Stephanie in second? Or I feel like either way they do it, Julia is going to overshadow Stephanie a little bit. So I don't know. I don't know what the right way of doing it is, but as much as I believe in Joe Hendry, I also believe in Shawn Michaels, even though you've blocked me on Twitter for your booking and the way that Shawn Michaels kind of runs things on NXT. I'm here for the ride. I'm here for the ride. So we'll kind of see where that goes. But in terms of Steve's email, there being a non-zero chance about Julia leaving No Mercy as champion. I don't know how they'd get there unless they went the WrestleMania 9 route of Hulk Hogan coming out and challenging Yokozuna for the title he just won off of Bret Hart. I don't know how you would necessarily get there, but that would certainly be a surprise. I wouldn't expect that. I don't think any of us would have really expected that. So I'm all for shock value. Not Vince Russo every 15 minutes shock value, but I'm all for a little bit of shock value here and there in wrestling because it keeps things interesting. And we don't want to be able to predict what's happening 90% of the time, which I have to admit, under Triple H and Shawn Michaels and NXT now, I'm less able. I'm able to predict what's going on less and less than I was under Vince. Vince was so predictable and everything, and we all know that. But I like this now. I mean, I still kind of have an idea what's going on, and usually I as I'm watching a match, I'm like, oh yeah, this is the way it's going to go. But there's sometimes where I have no idea. I don't know, and I'm just along for the ride, and I love it. It's kind of nice to be able to be back there again. Yeah, there we go on Steve's email.
JB gives us this. Hi, team. It's JB from Detroit. Number 1, is Wendy Chu the worst mystical character of all time? I'm sure there's a worst example from the 90s, but I was on a breakup until about the Attitude Era at that point, so that era is a bit murky for me. No, because her character is low risk, low stakes NXT stuff. All of the worst mystical stuff I've ever seen in wrestling, like the 10 worst mystical segments I've ever seen in wrestling, were all The Undertaker. And I'm not going to sit here and say that, I mean, Fantasio he had what, one match on TV?
Yeah, but it was bad.
Yeah, it was, well, sure, but I actually didn't see it. It was on an episode I didn't see. Yeah, No, the worst mystical stuff I've ever seen was Undertaker, because when you have a good mystical character, you're going to do stupid stuff with him. Wendy has never done anything half as stupid as Undertaker ascending to heaven at Royal Rumble 93. So no, not at all. But there's stuff to figure out if this character is going to make it further. Number two, would Wesley's turn have had more or less impact if the Rascals had been in NXT his entire run and he was primarily a tag wrestler in MSK? I'm not saying it could have gotten to DIY levels of feud, but it could have been a light version. I think this works because of what happened, not despite it. I don't think this would have gotten anywhere near that if they had just been there. I think this works because of the real history. Number three, will Chase U ever be a main roster actor? Are they destined to grow and evolve in the NXT ecosystem forever? Similar to Bullet Club in Japan to an extent, there's come multiple generations of reiterations. I think that both possibilities are a net positive. It wouldn't bother me if Chase U was just meant to be an NXT thing, but it would probably bother Andre Chase. Number four, will Fraser and Axiom work as a heel act? That seems to be the way they're leaning, only for this match. Number five, I think that Joe Hendry's gimmick has more legs to it than Elias's ever did, even if they're somewhat similar. Hendry does a great job in getting the crowd involved, and the participation is palpable. Hendry has a much higher ceiling, and I'm trying to leave out hindsight in that analysis. He certainly has a much better ceiling. But like Elias, he's extremely limited on the guitar. Number six, Pete Dunne said that Trick wouldn't make it to next Tuesday. I think that telegraphs the idea that Dunne will attack Trick as the guest referee in the Page Hendry title match at No Mercy, allowing Page to retain his title. I thought that too. As always, love the show and go VIP. Nate, throw down on this email. For as much or as little as you want.
I'll throw down, yo. Wendy Chu, worst mystical character of all time. I wouldn't say worst mystical character of all time, but I like this version of Wendy Chu better than the original version of Wendy Chu, where she just like to sleep and bring a body pillow to the ring. This kind of nightmare version of Wendy Chu, at least it's more interesting. And as I said on the show before, I tend to lean towards a darker character anyway. So, there we go. It's weird. I don't think it has a very high ceiling, but there we go. Wesley's turn of more impact if the Rascals have been in NXT in the entire run. Probably. But as Kelly said, I think, well, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said probably. Maybe is my answer. But like Kelly said, I think the way that things played out in real life really lends itself to the story they're telling now. It's tough to say because we don't know what they would have done as MSK, but or the Rascals if Trey wound up coming in too, and we had all three of them. We don't know what they really would have done in the NXT system. My guess is they probably would have been a tag team and been together, and I maybe they would have broken up, but I think of where MSK was when Zach Wentz left the company as Nash Carter, and I mean, yeah, sure, they were popular, they were cheered, former NXT tag team champions. Well, they were the tag team champions when Wentz left the company, but I didn't personally see a ceiling much higher than that. I never expected either one of them to break out as a single star. So I mean, Wes Lee was a complete surprise. I think to all of us, for that matter, or at least most of us. So yeah, it's tough to say, but I like the story that they're telling, and there we go. Chase U, if are any sort of any chance of them being a main roster act, or are they destined to be in NXT? I'm with Kelly. I wouldn't mind if Chase U just happened to be like this subset of NXT, and you could enroll in Chase U while you're in NXT, and then you move up to the main roster, and kind of have a rotating cast come through and all of that. But as As Kelly said, I think Andre Chase may have something to say about that. He'd have to go up to the main roster and still maybe be like the I don't know, the namesake or whatever of the school, but it could work. But whatever. Um, Will Frazier and Axiom work as a heel act, as Kelly said, for this match, but I don't see them necessarily staying heel. I don't know. From what we're seeing, I really think it's probably just for this. Although I know I have talked in the past with them potentially turning heels. Um, I think if they do decide to turn Frazier and Axiom heel, they're going to wind up breaking up, and one of them is going to turn heel, one of them is going to turn face. Probably Frazier heel, Axiom face, um, and then they'll wind up feuding together before they go off and do separate things. But I don't know. That's kind of where I see that right now. Joe Hendry, I think what you said is right. JB, I think Joe Hendry has much more legs than Elias's character ever did. Um, Very somewhat similar characters, but uh, I don't know. I like the the direction for Hendry a little bit more. Um, Elias was more of a Vince, like something that Vince would be able to latch onto, and the character was really pushed in a direction that would please Vince, not necessarily everybody else, even though it wasn't bad. Joe Hendry is more of an organic thing. It's more the fans are already they're already a part of it because it happened outside of the WWE bubble. It happened on the internet almost, and in other companies. But I mean, the viral popularity kind of took place just in the internet. So um, yeah, I think Hendry is definitely more of a star than Elias. And then Pete Dunne, Trick Williams. I didn't think about the fact that maybe Dunne will attack him, him being Trick Williams before the guest referee slot, maybe afterwards or something. But it does make sense because Pete Dunne did say he wouldn't make it next Tuesday. So maybe we will see some Pete Dunne involvement with Trick Williams at No Mercy either before or after the NXT title match.
Kevin Catani hits us with our last email. That is salutations, gents. He puts over the women's division in NXT and says, if we've learned nothing from actual sports, more quality reps lead to more quality performance. I know we gush week after week about the progress of many of the female talent, but the question I have for you to ponder tonight is, who is a current female performer that you think is flying under the radar that we really need to be paying more attention to? Thanks as always. Go VIP and listen to 8YB. Office hours are now over. The Professor, Kevin P. Catani, PhD. How under the radar is under the radar? Because my girls right now that are not in major storylines, championship storylines or anything like that, who I really like are Brent Sinclair and Jasmine Nix. I love Jasmine Nix. I think she's got presence. I think she's got swagger. She's really learning to wrestle quickly, and gun to my head, choosing the person from Fatal Influence who has the highest ceiling, I think I'd actually go her. Henley, I love, by the way. I love Fallon Henley, and I think she's got some level of it, whatever it is, and she's certainly got the look of a champion, and I think she's probably closest to having the look that can take her high up. But Jasmine Nix is kind of the add-on to this faction, and I think she's a star in the making. I really do. I could eat those words, but that's my pick, Nate.
I'm looking up and down the roster right now, and I think the one that stands out to me is flying under the radar is I'm going to go with Ren Sinclair. And I mean, I'd say she's still flying under the radar because she's kind of just this one little bit part of No Quarter Catch crew. She's even though she's becoming more of a bigger part of it and kind of become a bigger, she has a bigger overall role on the show. she's still not somebody that's, in the main event women's division or the tag team division or anything like that. She or the North American division. She's just kind of there and on the show. But as we keep saying, we're impressed with her in the ring. We're impressed with her charisma and everything that she's doing behind this. I keep saying behind the scenes, backstage with No Quarter Catch Crew. I, I think she's my pick right now. I think Ren Sinclair, out of, like I said earlier, the kind of the new class of women. I think of like Izzy Dame, Carly Bright. I even kind of, I wouldn't necessarily lump, I lump Sol Ruka in there because she was gone for so long. So kind of mentally in my head, but but out of this kind of new class of women, I think Ren Sinclair is my favorite right now.
Okay, so Nate, not long from now, I got to watch an NXT from 8 years ago because I got a real early one tomorrow morning to thread the needle. So we're gonna go rapid fire. I think. I mean, we'll see on these 3 short form matches that were tonight. Carmen Petrovic defeats Izzy Dame. I thought it was fine. Izzy still doesn't really have a character, which you would prefer that she had. She was the lackey to oh my gosh, Kiana James. I can't even think of her name because she's not getting any TV time on the main roster. 412 Petrovic over Dame with a roll up. Kalani Jordan over Rosemary. 421 split-legged moonsault with Kalani Jordan going over. Kalani did what she could. I'm going to try to be nice, but Rosemary.
You don't have to.
I know I don't have to. It was bad. It was really bad. She was bad. And I thought, she's in the PC. Maybe things can improve. I did not know she was 40. I didn't know that she had been around that long. So I guess cool moment for her. That's what I'm going to say. Malik Blade versus Brooks Jensen was a whatever. Brooks Jensen getting over as a brawler on Malik Blade, who is a guy who does not win singles matches. I believe this brings Brooks Jensen's singles wins to 1, which puts him 1 up on Bobby Fish. 3 minutes and 28 seconds. Flying elbow. Malik Blade is your winner. So before I get to a couple of backstage things that may or may not be important enough to mention, those are the other matches that you can talk about or ignore.
Carmen Petrovic versus Izzy Dame happened. I'm going to leave it at that because I don't really have much to say there. It was an okay match. Kalani Jordan versus Wendy Chu. I talked a little bit about Wendy Chu just now with Kevin's email. I think it was Steve's email, Steve Repture's email. Kalani Jordan versus Wendy Chu's secret opponent. I was reading your report and I didn't finish reading it. The secret opponent being Rosemary. It was kind of a bad match. Like, matter of fact, they were on commentary. Vic Joseph was touting off Rosemary's accolades as being a knockouts champion and being former multi-time knockouts tag team champion in TNA. And as he's doing it, she gets shot into the ropes and she hits the ropes like she's never hit the ropes before, which I was thinking about this. I was thinking about those exact words as Kelly was talking just now. And I did look up, as far as I can see on Wikipedia from my 30 seconds of research, Impact TNA, they use an 18-foot ring. So maybe that kind of screwed her up. I don't know. She's not used to a 20-foot. I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt because things did not really work super well for Rosemary here. I was glad to see her. I've seen her wrestle in a few matches here and there over the years. She's a friend of mine, Ben. He is like in love with Rosemary. But I wasn't super impressed with the match here tonight. Maybe she and Kalani just didn't have great chemistry. I don't know. Maybe just an off night. But it is what it is. I do like the whole Wendy Chu kind of like bringing somebody else in to do her bidding. It kind of, I don't know. It's not like it reminds me of Tian Sha at all when she was playing Mei Ying. I don't remember. I had one was my coworker and one was her name.
Mei Ying. What's her
Mei
name?
Ying. Okay, thank you. Mei Ling was my coworker. And so not exactly the same type of a thing, but kind of in a similar vein. I kind of like that. I don't see Rosemary sticking around as like a lackey for Wendy Chu, but hey, maybe she will. We didn't see the Rascals, or I didn't see the Rascals sticking around for this long and all of that, or Joe Hendry for that matter when he first showed up in NXT. So you never know. Malik Blade versus Brooks Jensen. Um, I, it was interesting to see Malik Blade out there without Idris Enofe, which is what it is there, and I'm kind of wondering if they're going to play into that at all with the whole bad luck thing or whatever. They kind of brought it up a little bit tonight, but I don't know. Maybe they'll go somewhere with it. I like what Brooks Jensen's got going on right now. I mean, he's got. I wish they'd kind of get back to his story a little bit because right now he's still just kind of that angry chip on his shoulder, got to prove everybody wrong type of thing. So I'd like to see a little bit more progression with that story right now. But considering we're kind of in a holding pattern week coming into No Mercy, maybe we'll get a little bit more of that either next week or the following week or something like that. So I'm not giving up hope on Brooks just yet, but I would like to see them keep the ball rolling with him.
Okay, the only other things that happened on this were Oro Mensah started something with Lexus King. Yeah, I always save Lexus King for last because I'm like, maybe I won't have to talk about him. Hank and Tank and Out the Mud. They're still a thing, folks. Not just related to Jada Parker. They're getting a little TV time. So tag team division has been pretty ignored. So at least something is happening. I believe we talk. Oh, and Eddie Thorne is starting with something with Ashante the Adonis. I think Eddie should have beat Lexus King, but whatever. Ashante the Adonis really just I say it every week, but the failed Mac thing is very funny. I don't think about it week to week, but I think it's pretty funny. So that I believe is everything, Nate.
And I'm going to say I believe that is everything. I don't really have much to say in any of those segments. They were there. The mostly filler as far as I'm concerned.
We could say that about the whole episode, and I think we will, and we'll head out. I'm Kelly Wells, and you can find me on social media at Spooky Milk. Nate
Lindberg. You can check out the things I do at NateLindberg.com. You can follow me at Nate Lindberg on X if you'd like to. I don't do much over there, but you could check out the few tweets I put out every month, and come back and see us. Hang out.
All right, folks. Cheers. We'll see you in 7. No, we'll see you in 5. No Mercy.
Oh yeah, No Mercy. Well, we'll see the VIP members in 5, but we'll see everybody else in 7.
All right. Cheers.